I think the fact that I selected this flight is nearly as much of an endorsement as I could possibly give to an airline. The thing is, I knew this flight was going to be stressful, perhaps a bit emotional, and I knew there were going to be quite a few moving pieces that I don't normally need to deal with when flying, such as lugging over 400 pounds of luggage with me. Knowing all of that, Qatar Airways was my first choice simply because I knew it would be a consistent experience. Now, ironically, some of you rightfully think that Qatar Airways is the least consistent airline for one specific reason. We'll get into all of that. But first, let me remind you that the price that I paid out of pocket for every flight that I take and every hotel I stay in is always in the description. Let me welcome any of you that might be new to the channel. My name is Kevin. Over the last 5 years, I've flown over 130 airlines, so I could bring you my self-funded, drama-free, and honest takes on them all. Not to mention the over 200 hotels and resorts that I've reviewed so far. Scan the QR code to explore the destinations I've covered and learn more about the channel. Without further ado, let's get flying. And here we are, driving through Saigon for my last time. I guess my last time as a resident, at least. I lived in Saigon for around 11 years, but priorities changed, and I'm heading back to the US. For a deeper dive into that farewell vibe, check out my recent revisit video of the Park Hyatt Saigon, where I spent my last few nights. Limited footage to show before getting to departure since I was not so gracefully trying to push all of this around, but it does bring up a great policy that Qatar has and some incredible ground staff they have working in Saigon. My business class ticket included my carry-ons as well as two 32-kilo bags, aka 70 pounds each. The great policy though is that Qatar Airways allows you to purchase up to, get this, 20 additional bags prior to check-in for $200 each. $200 will get you 23 kilos for each bag if flying in economy, but in business, that $200 gets you 32 kilos per bag. I'm not sure how many of you have shipped things across the globe recently, but that is dirt cheap for what is effectively express shipping. The fact that I'd be able to have all of my worldly possessions with me instead of in the hands of DHL or another carrier was just the cherry on top. I had One World Sapphire status via British Airways, but this ticket was booked on my Qatar Airways account. I called the Vietnam office a month in advance to ask them to add my BA number to the booking, since that would get me the additional bag for free. They said it wasn't possible over the phone, but that it was easy to do with the check-in agent. So because of that, I did not check in online. My check-in agent had the patience of a patron saint. I let her know that I had 5 bags to check in. I prepaid for 2 of them, and the 5th was free from my BA status, which I showed her. She didn't bat an eye and quickly and efficiently just got it done. There was a small problem though. This flight was originally scheduled on a 222 777, then switched to a QSuites 777, then back to a 222, and then to a 121. Thanks to immediate notifications from my Flighty app, I always checked my seats and ensured that I had the window seat on the left side, since 99.2% of the time, that will give you the beautiful view of Saigon. I don't want to sound dramatic, but given that this was my last flight out of Saigon, it was beyond imperative in my mind for me to have one of those seats. I wanted to see the city. My boarding passes were printed out. 2G. WTF. I explained to the agent that as of the night before, I still had 1A assigned to me, and I would take any A seat, but I did literally kinda beg them to fix it. 5-minute story short, they did. And I was a very happy camper. You may be able to tell that the fuselage is white, not the standard QR gray, and that's because this is one of the dozen or so aircraft that Qatar leased or acquired in the past few years to expand capacity when they had their Airbus conflict holding back deliveries. Our aircraft tonight is an ex-Virgin Australia 777 with their original cabins. In business, there are 2 cabins in a 1-2-1 standard reverse herringbone pattern, which is just fine with me. Getting Qatar'd, the act of Qatar Airways swapping aircraft, which results in you not getting a QSuite when you thought you would, is a word that stings some travelers. And it does still happen, but it's really not all of that often on long-haul flights. If you look at it the way that I do. If your mantra is QSuites or nothing else, then there is lots of room for disappointment. For me though, I just want all aisle access. Would I prefer QSuites on every flight? Yeah, sure. But you'll never hear me being down on a reverse herringbone seat. So how often could it actually happen? Well, just looking at their wide-body fleet, they have around 201 aircraft on hand. 80 of them have QSuites, 101 of them have reverse herringbone or apex suites, and just 20 of them have the old 222 configuration. Of those 20, half are A330s, which are used mostly on longer regional routes. It's just those 10 777s that are still hanging around with 222, which you might need to worry about. When flying long haul, I think a 5% worry factor is still pretty good odds. Let's get on board, explore the seat, talk about the service, and then we'll chat about what's next for their wide-body fleet. Here we are, thankfully in 1A. I didn't realize my seat was slightly reclined when I boarded, so that's why the proportions might look a little bit off. My camera was not a fan of the tone of lighting on this aircraft. All in all, this is a perfectly fine reverse herringbone seat in mostly fantastic shape. These are super diamond seats, which you'll find on a boatload of carriers. They really have been the gold standard for a decent business class seat for years now. Getting these seats, or the reverse herringbone seats on the aircraft they have from Cathay Pacific, or even the A330s that they have from Oman Air with Apex suites, none of these are bad. As far as this seat model goes, it has the standard and fantastic 2 side storage areas with a fairly useless safety card storage area behind it. If you're enjoying the video and would like to support the channel, there are many ways that you could do so. A quick like on the video and subscribe helps with the algorithm, or you could check out my Patreon linked in the description below. On Patreon, I post everything from early access or Patreon-only videos, to newsletters, my best tips and tricks to save money on travel, glimpses behind the scenes, detailed advanced itinerary maps, and much, much more. Think of it as a toolbox to save money on or simply improve your next trip, especially if it's in Southeast Asia. If you have specific questions about your upcoming trips, I can help with that too. Whatever you do though, thanks very much for doing it. Be careful with your literature pocket. If your wine list tilts over in there, it's gonna be gone forever. There's a bit more storage near your knee space, and then of course the great legroom with personal item storage under the footrest. Pre-departure service and greetings were quickly underway. I went for the rosé bubbles, and I gotta say I really did not enjoy the vibe of the crew who was taking care of me. I've honestly never heard such a scripted and just rushed welcome spiel. Literally, it felt like a 3-minute long welcome which she never took a breath during. I get that there's a lot that needs to be communicated, but just the slightest ounce of personality would make a world of difference. I haven't heard such scripted service since my first class flight on Etihad. let's take a look at the comfort items on board. You've got your bottle of water along with the itty bitty destination pillow. The standard pillow is plump as ever, and I gotta say, every time, their blankets when rolled up and sealed in the plastic could easily serve as a pillow fight knockout weapon. They do have really good slippers though. If you're looking for them, they're hiding in your pajama packet. As with all flights in Qatar business class, food is all dine on demand. But for a 6-hour flight departing just after dinner time, I'm pretty sure the entire cabin ate together. Service started out with an off-menu smoked salmon amuse, which was really good. Here's the full menu and wine list for this flight. Note that the red prices on the wine list are just to give you an idea of what the wine value is on board. Of course, you do not need to pay. The menu on this flight was surprisingly basic for Qatar standards. Like, their meze platter was good, but it was just basic hummus, basic mutabel, and basic tabbouleh. Not the fancy schmancy unique flavors that I've raved about in the past. For what it was good though, 7.7 out of 10. For the main dish, I had the dish that I've probably had in Vietnam more than any other over the past 11 years, bò lục lak. Essentially, beef cubes wok fried with onions and peppers. Think of it kind of like a not sweet and sour beef. The rice was a bit mush, but otherwise it was tasty, 8.2 out of 10. For dessert, a honeycomb cake with coconut cream, caramelized walnut, and mango coulis. In a rare turn of events, I think this is the first Qatar dessert that I've ever not cared for. The flavor notes here were molasses, and molasses, and without the advertised mango coulis, it was just very stodgy in one note. The chewy texture was great though, 5 out of 10. Virgin's 777s originally had an onboard bar between the business class cabins, and I thought it was a nice touch that they actually stocked it during the flight. As we take a look at the outstanding entertainment, the PJs, and the flatbed experience, let me talk a bit about what's coming for Qatar Airways in terms of their onboard business class product. Keep in mind that they just had a change of CEOs again, so in a couple of months, none of this might turn out to be true. But as of now, they're saying that they won't be retrofitting any more aircraft that they already have with QSuites. So the next big change we'll see will be when the first of the 90 777-9s that they have on order begin to arrive, if that miracle of a day ever does come. On these aircraft, as well as the new A350s which will arrive from that point on, you'll experience Qatar's next generation QSuites, which I think are a really thoughtful refresh of the current fantastic seat. The standout feature to me is that couples can now get 2 window seats, open up the divider, and have a private space all to themselves. It's a great idea, but I do reckon that window seats will be booked up faster than ever now. So up to 108 of their 245 widebodies on order will have those next generation suites. Their 137 787s on order will likely not feature them though, since from everything that I'm reading, the new QSuites are still too wide for a 787. So for those new aircraft, I think it's a safe bet to assume they'll get similar seats to what their 787-9s have now. There was a selection of light meals available after the main meal, including beef noodle soup, grilled chicken sandwiches, or prawn summer rolls, but I honestly don't think a single person took them up on it. The landing in Doha is coming up. So I'd say that this flight was like a 7 by my ranking standards, but keep in mind that my rankings are cumulative for all the flights that I've published on that airline, and this is my 10th video about them. So their number 9 spot sticks, since I've had many incredible flights with them. We had a dreaded bus gate, but it wasn't so bad since the buses were quick and plentiful. So I really do hope that you enjoyed this flight with me today. If you did, please be sure to click on the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on my twice weekly videos. I'll see you next time on my flight to New York. As always, thanks for watching until the end.